Be yourself. Be proud of who you are. Don't stop learning.
Today, we're in London with one of the most influential female leaders in Pan-African energy.
Mounia Attiga's career spans United Nations, Schlumberger, Shell, her own consultancy, and now Vodafone.
Because we speak about, diversity, but when you live it, it's completely different.
She's a bridge between investors and opportunity across the Arab world, a strategist shaping decarbonisation and innovation at a global level, and a tireless advocate for women in energy, building platforms that mentor, connect and elevate leaders across North Africa and beyond.
Let's challenge the narrative. It's different for every region. It's different for every country. It's the resources, it's the energy mix. And then the most importantly is the energy security.
Today, we sit down to explore her journey, her mindset and her vision for the transformation of the global energy sector.
Collaboration is key. Partnerships that are actually forming today will drive the future and will be the most important factor.
So, welcome to the Energy Executive 360 podcast with me, Emilio Falmata, and today I'm joined by my guest, Mounia Attiga. Mounia, thank you so much for joining me here in London today. I know you've come from west to east kind of to see me, so I really appreciate your time. And today I really wanted to start speaking about something that I think I've been reflecting on, which is the idea of impact. I think from the conversations I've had so far, and I think I will be having in the future, the thing that kind of connects all of us in the energy industry is that we really do believe that we can have an impact in the world, And I think that's a really strong message and a purpose that I kind of want to share to people. So I kind of want to, first of all, to start, get your idea on your outlook on that idea, that concept of impact, and how important that's been in terms of motivating you and pushing you to keep going in the 20 years you've been in the industry.
Yeah, thank you, Emilio. Thank you for having me. I've been following you and the great things you're doing. I think you've been very active in providing this platform. And that's an impactful platform. And you started this, and congratulations. I think I'll go back into, starting your career. You actually don't really know, and you don't really plan it as people think, So it's not like a structured plan. But I think at some point in your career where you start to realize and just take a step back and say, so why am I doing this? Mm-hmm. Is it just a 9-to-5 job, or am I, is there an impact of what I'm doing to the greater? And you start to look at the bigger picture and you see your role. And I think I'm becoming more and more passionate about the sector itself, but also about realizing and stopping when needed and questioning if anything I'm doing is not, impactful or having a purpose. So I link the purpose in every single thing I'm doing so far.
Yeah. No, and I did read a couple of articles where you did say that the idea of purpose was something that keeps you going, not only on a kind of business and work level, but also on a personal life. So when I asked, what is kind of your mission now? You've been in the industry for I think about 20 years. So what's your mission and your purpose now moving forward? What do you feel like is the best way you can continue contributing to the energy industry?
I think I will be contributing forever. I don't think there will be a retirement. But and to be honest, there's always a role to play. So either, it will be personally or professionally. But I think the most important thing, and people will think it's a cliche when we say payback, but it's that realization of, what we learn from the journey and how we can actually help others and, pull others and empower others. I mean, everyone is empowered, but we just, support each other. So I think a contribution will continue. What I'm doing today is really making sure that first, my role as a chair, for example, and lean in equity and sustainability for North Africa, that's personally very close to my heart, because first it's empowering female to actually start their career and actually grow into executive roles within the energy sector in a region that I come from it. So that's a continuity of where I started from.
Great. Now I'm definitely going to ask you about that in more detail later, but I want to go and kind of understand a bit of your journey to getting to where you are today. I think that there's a lot of value in kind of showing how we've got to energy and why we think it's so important. And so you mentioned the idea of starting the journey. When you're starting, you're kind of shooting in the dark. You don't know really what you're doing. That's how I look at this podcast. I'm kind of shooting and seeing what happens. And so I want to understand, when you look back, do you think that you had some kind of mentor, someone that gave you that leg up into the industry, someone that really helped you, or maybe a group of people or an institution that really helped you kind of make that first step, that maybe you think, oh, I think maybe energy is what I want to dedicate myself to?
Yeah, the start of the journey was really in the technology space.
Mm-hmm.
So I come from a computer engineering background, and it started with Schlumberger. So
Mm-hmm.
a company that I always put a chapeau to in terms of training and development. So you have a clear career path, you have clear development path. The exposure is massive because you work internationally with a diverse team. And that's a fantastic start of a career. And then as I said, it's not really structured. And again, it's not also shooting just randomly, but I think there was where I am today and where I want to be, and then how I get there. And I think this is an equation that I use even personally. So I always know where I am today, and I'll be very honest of where I am today. And then it's like, okay, so, looking forward, where do I want to be? And then the how comes. And the how is always how and who. So
Yeah,
there
correct.
will always a how to get there, but also who can support you on that. And of course, I'm so lucky to have mentors, being colleagues, being family members who supported me throughout my journey. And I think I have always that eager that I want more, and I always ask what is next. And I think I need to stop now at this phase asking what is next and enjoy the now.
Yeah, no, that's sort of super important. And when you look back at that, is there there's another podcast that is quite famous, and they always ask, what is the greatest piece of advice you've ever been given or received? And I think that's a pretty interesting question, which I haven't asked anyone yet. So is there like a particular piece of advice that you think stands out?
Yeah, I think piece of advice that is always be yourself. I think the first day on my career, I got an advice from a colleague that be yourself, and be proud of who you are, and don't stop learning. Another very important, and it's my motto throughout, is just focus and ignore the noise. So throughout, you'll hear noise around us, noise, different noise. It can be sometimes positive, but mostly negative.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's super interesting. My motto is trust your delusion.
Yes.
So it's kind of, even if you have people saying, don't do that, do this, just trust whatever you think is right, and if it's wrong, you just go back and start again.
Because there are doubters, there are people who will pull you down. There are circumstances that will drain you, and unless you're really focused on who do you want to become and where do you want to be, that's very important. And then I think another thing is that maybe there's a bit of a stereotype, but it's not one size fits all. It's your journey, so own it. Own it and enjoy it, and it's you who is in the driving seat. So, why doubt? Why? At the start, of course, it wasn't all that.
Yeah, of course, I think everyone says that. Yeah.
Age comes with a bit of maturity and experience, but when I started my career, there was like fear. You want to always prove yourself. The most important thing is to enjoy it and own it.
Yeah. Now, one of the things you mentioned, which I find drives me day to day as well, is the idea of identity. So you said, of course, at the beginning, you're from Libya. You're the chair of the Lean In Equity and Sustainability for North Africa. How important is that identity for you in terms of driving you every day to do what you do and provide opportunities not only for women and in the industry, but also to that kind of region of the world?
Thank you for asking this question, Emilio, seriously, because identity is very important, because we speak about, diversity, and we have all these amazing, websites speaking about it. But when you live it, it's completely different. So, I would say I come from, that's it's very, 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 very lucky that I come from a very empowered, very educated family.
Yeah.
Each individual, even the first generation, they all contributed either to Libya or globally, and the second generation are actually carrying the flag and doing similar things, and we're celebrating each other. But I think coming from a male dominant country or society, and then going into technology plus energy in a foreign country. So I started my career in UAE, in Abu Dhabi, which is second home, and in a different environment that I wasn't raised in. Different people around you, different, even if it's an Arab Muslim culture, but it's still, it's different. And then into a corporate that, you have colleagues that maybe, graduated from very high universities or top universities, or been in the industry for longer than you are. So, I think this just builds up. And if you go back to the identity, you build up that identity and you start to be extremely proud of who you are. So in many, 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 many occasions, I'll be the triple minority in the room. I've been in most emails where Jens and Mounia, dear Jens and Mounia, there's always that. You're alone in the room. On many occasions, you'll be the shy, female sitting there, not daring to ask the question, let alone state your opinion, so not even raising the hand. So I think identity is becoming more and more important, is that to show it, to be proud of it. And going back to the North Africa, the amount of resources that we have in that region is incredible. And when I speak resources across, okay, so natural resources or human resources, it's massive. It lacks the spotlight and the visibility for different reasons, but it's fantastic that we provide platform for this identity to show and to shine, and to give platforms to actually go and get opportunities. And maybe I'll allude more into what we do in the Africa Oil Week Powerful List, which is a fantastic initiative.
No, and I think one thing I want to pick up on as well, when you talk about identity, I think the idea of being proud of that identity, like especially for me, has built my confidence. Over time, people, maybe at the beginning, people think being different is kind of a weakness, but actually once you realize and take it in, it becomes kind of a source of real confidence. And if you can really leverage it in that way, it can be super powerful. So can you think of how you managed to think, because it's easier to say than actually do it. So can you think of how you came to kind of use that to your advantage over time?
I'll think of, I think two folds of that. I tried to also pass this to my children, to Ad and Ahmed, is that because we lived abroad, I mean, we lost count of how many houses we lived in, and how many friends they had and disappeared, etc., and how many, schools they went to in 1 year. I think, they'll tell you, like, in 1 year, maybe they went to 4 schools. But, it's something that I really built it in them, is that it's not only the pride that comes with that, but it's also you're actually an ambassador to that identity, whoever it was. So if you're a Libyan and Muslim and from North Africa, then that's your personality. That's where you come from, right? And it comes with a lot of things, right? It comes with cultural and religion. For example, now I proudly in the workplace in the UK, I make people understand what is Ramadan, what is what we do in that holy month, etc., etc. So I think there are so many things that you can even help your colleagues to understand and come together in a common grounds where you actually celebrate each other and celebrate the background of each other, rather than being racist or facing discrimination in any sort of form. So I think there isn't like a magic bullet to it. I think you build it up. And to be honest, the world today is becoming more and more accommodating of our differences. I think the message is that it's fine. This is who I am. This is where I'm coming from, and I'm happy to contribute. So, yeah.
No, I think that's a beautiful message, and I think through that will have allowed you to, go and have the experiences you had. So you started at Schlumberger, as you said. You've worked at Shell. I think currently you're at Vodafone as well, and of course now you chair, as we mentioned, the Lean In Equity Network. I just wanted to, through those experiences, you become an energy and sustainability expert and strategist. So to the people watching that maybe don't really know what that means, how would you explain what you do day to day and how you contribute to the energy industry and the energy transition from a day-to-day basis?
Linking the technology, I think the technology is the key lever for us to actually, measure the intelligence of how well you adapt to the change. And I think, technology is a core lever. And then, going into a sector where it's important, it's in our day-to-day, it's around us, and it's influencing everything we do on a daily basis. There was a curiosity where I was like, I really want to understand the strategies because, in many aspects, we're very driven by the day-to-day numbers, the forecasts, and, and that's not a bad thing, but, you need to really look at what are the strategies specifically if you're forward thinker and looking forward, you need to do strategy. So I did my master's at Howard Watt, strategic planning, and I did management for oil and gas, and that was the step where I was like, now it's clear, right? So this is the strategy, this is how you execute it, this is the implementation plan, and then you turn that vision and strategy into execution, and then you have an impact, right? So there's impact into the execution bit. I think in day-to-day, what does that mean? It means that in my current role with Vodafone, I actually work alongside with energy companies within the UK. And that is, staying connected, making sure, the resilience of our network and in the UK, the resilience of the grid, making sure that, rural areas, our employees are safe and secure across the country. Vodafone and Three now are one company, so there was the merger announced recently. So it's a Vodafone Three, so it will be the nation's largest network. And what does that mean? I think in the ground scheme of things is that to make sure that I'm actually contributing to the sector in many aspects, in terms of technology, in terms of connectivity, in terms of consultancy, and looking ahead into the future, where we started to look into the massive investments in renewables in the UK and globally. So that's another aspect to it and another fold of it. And sustainability is in everything I do. I think I'll try as much as I can to be a good citizen and make sure that even on daily basis, sustainability plays a role. And some people think, sustainability is just recycling and doing this, but it's the growth. I mean, the growth itself is sustainability. The growth in any company, the resources, the lean of resources, the automation, all this is part of the sustainability conversations we're having.
Yeah, of course, and that all comes back to what we all want, which is the energy transition. And I think that's what we were speaking about last week. We had a quick call about the narratives around the energy transition. How do you, as someone that's been in the industry for 20 years, look at the energy transition? Because I think there's many people that don't work in the industry, which, like you mentioned, renewables, they think it's just renewables, or it's just this, or it's just that. But, it's much more complex than that, as you've alluded to. So how would you explain to someone how you see the energy transition moving forward?
Yeah, and I think we all transitioned into this, right? So I actually started to say, I usually say, I worked for Schlumberger oil and gas service. And then I started to worry about saying oil and gas, right? So it was like oil and gas services, and then it started to be, I started in the energy sector. So, you start to actually polish. But I think the way to look at it, and as you said, Emilio, and I this is why I resonated to what you said, is that, let's challenge the narrative. it's again, it's different for every region. It's different for every country. It's the resources. It's the energy mix. It's the energy addition, right? And then the most importantly is the energy security that we're talking about. In a volatile, world we're living in, most of the regions are, in facing challenges. Most of the countries in Africa are still talking about energy affordability, and we're coming and saying, oh, we need decarbonization, oh, you need emission. They need energy, to cook the meal. So it's, again, massive investments. I can see, 2025, there was announced that double the investment is in renewables versus fossil fuel. In most countries, they're doing, the big projects. In Morocco, I was just recently speaking at the energy event where they're doing the Nur Zazat, the solar park. In the UK, massive investments. We just heard the Master and Petrola announcement of around 6 billion, right, of the East Anglia 3. That is around 1.3 gigawatt of offshore wind farm. The Berwick Bank offshore wind farm with the SSC is also the largest worldwide. That was recently consented by the Scottish government.
No, and I think everything you're tying into, the complexity behind all of these things, is that I think today in common narrative we have the pure focus on sustainability. Of course, sustainability isn't a buzzword, it's a reality, we need it. But of course, as you alluded to, it comes with the idea or the concept of reliability and affordability. Can you explain to people the intersection between those three things and why we really need kind of all those three, or maybe even reliability and affordability even before sustainability, which is something that people don't like to hear, but unfortunately kind of in a way it's, if people can't afford the energy, it's useless, so how would you explain that to people?
And I think this is why there were a lot of people skeptical about, what does that mean? Are we going to put, solar panels on top of our roof?
It goes both ways as well. I've got people in my family, they're like, oh, no, renewables never going to work, or like electric vehicles are never going to work. And now we're surprised that China has, the best EVs in the world because they invested 20 years ago,
Exactly.
Where we were saying, no, it's never going to work. They were like, oh, it might work, so we're going to do it. And now we're complaining that China has the best EVs in the world, so it's that kind of give and take.
And it is that visibility, as you said. So it's affordability, visibility. It's the investment, right? So the investment trends, the investors' appetite, the political also, drivers behind all that. And then the diversification. So there are many countries in the world that, their main source of income, country like Libya, where I come from, is one of them. Countries like Saudi and UAE, for example, took bold decisions on diversification. So they're looking into mining, they're looking into renewables, and they're doing great job, I've attended COP28 in Dubai and the rest of it. I think, there are steps and actual steps in Saudi Arabia also, actual steps on the ground to actually move to renewables. But again, it's I won't say an Excel sheet, but it's a math game. We need to look at what is affordable. Technology is advancing, which is great, and we can see more and more prices are going down into solar panels. More and more funds towards startups using renewables energy in agriculture, different sector, but a lot of agriculture projects now are using renewable energy. And we see more and more of that, and opportunities are massive. And I think, countries where the sunshine is, throughout the year is definitely an opportunity.
Yeah, and of course, there we're speaking about renewables, but we also don't want to forget that oil and gas is forever going to be part of the conversation. Where do you think these kind of misconceptions come from? Where do you think maybe the oil and gas industry, the energy industry has gone wrong to let the narrative get to what it's got to, which the narrative right now, it's not pragmatic and it's not conducive to a strong energy future. This kind of idealism over realistically, what do we need? 82% of the world's energy is still oil and gas, so you can't turn off the tap. I always say, if we turn off the taps today, tomorrow, kind of the world's almost ended, you know?
Yeah.
So how have we gone so wrong in terms of like letting these narratives get out kind of hand? Where do you think the industry has gone wrong, and how can it do better to kind of fix the narrative in a way?
I don't think we'll close the tap by
I know,
any
that's
means,
an
but I
exaggeration.
think the easy resources are becoming, less and less, which is again something we need to address and think about it, right? So the technology is allowing us to go into the more difficult and conventional, but still, there is ethics around it. There's environmental aspects to address there, and that's very, very important. So I think we're going back to the question: what are we trying to solve? Are we trying to solve the problem of the climate change? Are we solving the emission? Are we solving the energy security? And I think there was a mix into that question of what is the source of the problem, and everyone is pointed oil and gas, right? Oil and gas sector. And yes, we all have to go through this. We all have to decarbonize. We all have to have emission capture reporting. Tax, will be applied into this and this. And I think that was the fear. And then people are realizing more and more now that, it's the operation, it's the ecosystem, it's the value chain that needs to be sustainable. And that is, the answer to this question. So if it is the oil and gas, then be it, right? Let's fix it. Let's fix the way we operate. Let's fix the way we impact the environment in terms of flaring, in terms of, massive sludge and the countries that have lakes of sludge that's affecting the environment. It's the waste management. Let's solve the real cause and the root cause of the problem, rather than just pointing finger that these are the bad guys and oil and gas is forbidden. But that's another source of energy, and that's an important source of energy, that at least the know-how is there, and the experience and the technology that is allowing us to get the oil out of the ground and the gas to heat our houses.
And I think that's a super interesting point, because I think people don't realize how interconnected every industry is going to be. I think when I spoke to Sharif, he likes the fact of 1 barrel of oil, 8 barrels of water, that gets extracted. Like the so much we can do with that water. That water can even be used to make green hydrogen, which is then using renewable energy to basically break down the water molecules. I don't know the ins and outs of the process, but ultimately we can use something that is made from an oil and gas from the oil and gas industry to use for renewable energy. Or for example, there's technology that we use for drilling in oil and gas, which can be used now for geothermal. They're looking at that kind of thing. So I think, how do you look at how all these industries are going to be interconnected, and how important that's going to be in terms of like uniting as an industry as well?
I would answer by saying collaboration in the next decade is important, like factor to anything we do, because I think we lived into the corporate giants where they can do it all end to end. It's not the case anymore. So I think most of the announcement that I'm seeing today is a collaboration. It's co-investing. It's intersect between industries. And as I said, the ecosystem is very, very important. So, without one another, it won't really fly. And this is what I said when I started with the technology. A few years ago, you hit the buzzword of digital transformation, right? It was like a trending.
I've been in Kuwait for a bit, and now the buzzword right now in Kuwait is digital transformation. So they're a little bit behind, but
correct. So although we've been working with Kuwait for that long time back on digital oil fields when I was with Schlumberger with KOC. And I think they've done a great job there. But digital transformation. So everyone is speaking about it, but what does that mean in reality? It's affecting all sectors. It's part of every day-to-day that we use today, and everything they're going to use tomorrow. Yesterday, I was looking for my bank branch, And I just found that most of them were closed, right? Because
Yeah.
we just do e-banking, and everyone is doing it online nowadays, and it's affecting everything. So just going back into intersect, I think collaboration is key. Partnerships that are actually forming today will drive the future and will be the most important factor on achieving and implementing these projects, because looking at value propositions of any of what we discussed so far, offshore wind farms, if you look at it from any angle, you need satellite, you need fiber optics, you need the connectivity on the vessels, you need so many aspects, you need the security, you need the cyber security, so that's like you can't like different sectors that will contribute into that.
Yeah, no, that's really what impacted me when I really got into the industry, about how much actually goes around one project. It's not just go there and drill, or go there and put the wind farm there or the solar there. Like you said, even the helicopter pads, so there's like so that you can get the people away if there's an issue. There's like I'll be making up the number, but there must be about 100 companies on one rig or on one project.
Absolutely.
And so that ecosystem means that there's so many opportunities to decarbonize, to improve the operations. And I guess what I'm trying to go with here, you mentioned digital transformation. Now I guess the buzzword is AI, which is kind of the next step of what the digital transformation really means. So how involved are you in your current job in terms of like the implementation of AI? And can you explain a little bit how important that's going to be in the energy sector in general, but also from your personal perspective and the work you're doing today?
I think it's really coming and not really coming. We're living it, right? So AI is part of what we do. AI has been there for some time, but it's evolving. It's affecting our day to day. We're actually encouraged to use more and more the AI tools for efficiency, for productivity, for etc. The way we work is starting to change. Absolutely, it will affect. I'm not claiming to be any expert of AI, but I'm sure it's again is that technology that is evolving. It will help us on making decisions. It will help decision makers. It will help the data analytics that we'll see more and more. The importance of data in all aspects. Either in the energy sector. Or the supporting sectors that supporting the energy sector. Data is essential. It's becoming more and more important, and tools like AI will just help us to actually accelerate, and maybe shorten the time that is required for the projects to be implemented. And I think this is again one of the areas that I see it very challenging, is that we hear a lot about the vision, we hear about the strategies, but then the implementations, right? So I think the cycle that is taking to consent a project, and then to allocate a budget for it, for the investment, that will take a long cycle. So I think the cycle to turn around these projects from vision, strategy, execution is long.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think that is why people are actually feeling comfortable now setting their net zeros to 2050, 2060, and just push it, we'll be fine. That is because of the lack of execution, because when they look at the pipeline of the projects, they see a list of pipeline, but they're just there, right? So I think execution, implementation is very essential for the leadership and the future leadership to actually lead.
Yeah, I think that's a super interesting point as well, because I guess a lot of the frustration around the energy industry, that I guess a lot of people feel that there's a lot of talk, but then when it actually comes to getting it done, then it's a kind of different story, So I guess AI can help kind of change that story. I think it's super interesting that I think that's a key source of the frustration through the energy industry. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that, and fully, Emilio. But I'm also wanting to also emphasize is that we need to look also into our workforce, right? Which is a very close area to my heart, is the training and development and capacity building strategies. Is that maybe I haven't mentioned, but I set up my own company called Gemstone Services, where actually this is what we do. We make sure that, the fresh graduates, and even before that, when you started to do your personal statements and career planning, I had Wad and Ahmed doing that, and it's a bit of not really clear what we want to do. But I think it's very important is that to start, from there, because then we will have the workforce ready when they join, their positions to be, AI equipped and have the right tools, because they'll be essential. They'll be, in demand for finding job opportunities, and an essential skill set that we need to really look at, and I don't think we're doing it as we're supposed to do.
Okay, now that's an interesting segue into what I wanted to touch on next, which was, you mentioned gemstones, and of course we've already mentioned that you're the chair of Lean In Equity and Sustainability Network for Northern Africa. So I feel a lot of your work and a lot of your kind of purpose and mission, as we mentioned at the beginning, is kind of looking to help people, or help, like we said, like the region where you're from as well. So, and what do you say you were the biggest learning curves, or the biggest things you've learned from being, chair of Lean In and working and opening your own kind of business essentially?
In terms of Lean In, I think the thing I learned is that although this is a volunteering job, I do it on my own resources and own time, which is, again, if I don't enjoy it and I don't feel it and passionate about, that can be draining.
Of course.
And I cover the region, but I think it's the great thing about meeting people and hearing their stories and their success stories, and asking myself, what do I know? I mean, coming from the region, I thought I know a lot about it, but I didn't. So it's that discovery. And every time I land in one of these countries, the hospitality, the collaboration, the ideas, the initiatives, the leadership skills in the females that we have in the region and across, of course. I mean, worldwide, we do have great female leading in the energy sector, although the statistics are showing very low numbers. Year to date, we still talk about 20% of female in the energy sector, and around maybe 8 or 9% only in board positions, which is shocking number. Like 75% maybe of the companies don't really have board members, female board members or executives. So that's something that needs to be fixed.
No, exactly. So let's talk a bit more in depth about Lean In. Of course, as you mentioned there, around 20% of the workforce in the energy industry are women. And I think just so people have a more specific understanding of what Lean In is, essentially, from my understanding, the mission is to give opportunities to women to enter male-dominated industries. Honestly, one of those, as we've already touched on, is energy. So tell me about how you came to kind of form part of Lean In, and kind of how important is that to your day-to-day, as well as we've been speaking about that throughout.
Yeah, I think the mission is, as you stated it, right. It's again, people use the word empowerment, but I use the word of providing a platform of opportunities, and I think there's massive experience there that people will share, and they do it all voluntarily. So I've been part of that team, and then the leadership team, and then the advisory team. So that was really the mission, and still is the mission. The other very important factor that realized by the team is that we want to be closer to where, not say the problem, but the challenge is, and being closer meaning empowering people on those countries, those locations, those circumstances to actually voice up and get access to these opportunities that we're talking about. And this is what we've been doing. So, we took countries, we defined circles within the countries just to get closer and closer, and define leaders for these circles. And it went on. And I think, from a personal aspiration is being from the region, and lived in the MENA region, worked in the GCC countries. I just felt that, we've been, didn't really have much love in that region in terms, as I said, focusing on our resources, nature resources. I mean, we have Algeria, we have Libya, oil producers, we have Egypt with a massive energy spectrum, and then, we do have Tunisia and Morocco with all the renewables projects going on. And then, the location, the North Africa location close to Europe, that's kind of light Europe, and no, no brainer. And then there's that. So I think this is where I actually went and said, yes, I'll take the role of chairing this network, and being closer and empowering the leaders there to start the initiatives, but also execute the initiatives and get the sponsorships. Another very important one is that every time we say or highlight the 20% or the 8% or 5%, whatever low percentage of female participation in the sector, we get the answer of we can't find them. So we came with an initiative where we say, okay, we're gonna have every year a top 50 powerful list and announce it in the Africa all week, and reward the top 50. And today we have 250 names of female who are actually leading and powerful in that powerful list. And now everyone, I say, where we find them, we just send them the link and say, here you go. They're there, and they're leading on what they're doing. They're doing great things on where they are, but it's just the lack of visibility, and I think other issues.
And is that in terms of women in energy, is that a lack of opportunity for women, or I don't know, I obviously not sure of the numbers, but are there more women? Are we seeing more women wanting to get into energy, for example? Because I remember I was in Kuwait and we went to do an interview with one of the universities, and actually we went into the engineering arm, and we all went in there. I think it was 3 of us. We went in there, we looked, and we were like, it's all girls. It was honestly, it was all girls. So it was actually quite surprising to us. So I feel like there is more interest now, maybe from girls to get into the industry. How do you see that?
Yeah, I think it's, again, goes back to the stereotype, right? So the energy sector is, is a coverall. It's in the field, in the rigs. It's, dusty and muddy and whatever it is, right? So it's that stereotype, I think. But then you more and more, understand that, as you said, the intersect of, and the opportunities are, now in technology. So you can, be an IA expert and working in the energy sector. You don't really have to be in a remote oil field, which is, we still need these resources and we respect them for what they do to the sector. And to be honest, there's also something that I want to highlight in the MENA region, and the statistics of women and female studying STEM is higher than the West, actually.
Okay.
And there are different circumstances, right? So I don't know, we come up with cultures where they say, you need to be a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer, right? So it is that, which is very proud to see. But also these countries you mentioned, their sole income or their main income is, either oil and gas, or, they're doing a lot of investments now, and there are opportunities in the renewables and mining also, which is something I came across when working with Shell, is that you see more female are into the mining sector, which is a support, diversification on those countries. But I think there are different things. It's the perception, it's the opportunities that, given, it might be always looking for, male either colleagues or, jumping from one company to another. So, and pursuing their careers or growing their careers, But as I said, I think we answered the questions, or we can't find them. So if anyone asks you that, the podcast, I'm happy to share the link.
Of course. We can put it in the link in the description, of course.
We'll do that.
And one question that you have been asked in the past is in terms of what advice you would give to not only women, but young people that want to get into the industry. And you've said in the past, you've emphasized the importance of networking. And I think the energy industry particularly, well, I don't work in other industries, so I can't really speak about other industries, but the energy is particularly an industry which is very face-to-face in terms of negotiations. Everything is really done, lots of events that we do on an industry level. So what would be your advice to someone, or maybe if I put you now, with all the experience you have, and I put you back when you were 18 or 20 or starting out and put you in a networking session now, what do you think would be kind of your 3 main kind of things you need to be a good networker and to kind of make a good first impression? What would be kind of your framework in a way?
I think I'm impressed with the young generation, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, they're self-starters, at least the ones I've met. I
Yeah.
mean, they every time it's a bit funny. Every time they come and tell me to speak, being a role model or empowerment, they actually empower me. I have 2 at home that, they run a podcast on daily basis. Everything is a podcast and everything we discuss. So I think this generation knows what they want and where they are and what do they want in this sector. I mean, attending most of like Egypt's or events in the energy, there will be always youth panel discussing their career aspiration and how they see what their background, how is it related. Another area which is we didn't touch upon is the startups, right? So this generation is also very entrepreneurial, right? So their startup and I encourage that heavily. Like I encourage it in both gender, like female-led projects where startups that can contribute to the sector, especially locally, because you'll understand the local problem and you understand the ecosystem and how it works, and then finding a solution for that problem and accelerating that, or getting help to accelerate and get the right funds. I think we'll start to see more and more solutions coming. But yeah, I mean, networking is key. I do it till today. Enjoy it because you learn a lot and connecting, and then suddenly you just click. You need to connect Emilio with this and this or that, and then you start the conversation and the engagements, and a lot happen after that. So some of them will end up to be a long friendship. Some of them will be a business partner. Someone will be a co-founder of an idea. So I think don't hesitate, and I always encourage to even attend. Book yourself. I always tell, book yourself. Don't say I don't have time. In the UK, we're so lucky. So many things happening. And you can do many things for free. You can just attend, network, and there are many platforms. I didn't come across if you ask someone on LinkedIn or something that they'll either respond nicely or they don't. So.
No, I've got used to that. So
so it's fine,
I don't care
right?
anymore, yeah.
So it's fine, right?
Yeah.
So. But at least you try, right? And then there is that platform. But in general, I encourage as much as you can and your time allows to attend, to meet, to discuss, and to listen. Because in many times, I think we also need that opinion from the fresh blood on what we're doing. I see sometimes in the panel is like. We're just echoing or, repeating same. So we need to challenge, I think, the status quo.
No, I think the energy industry is seen as more of a kind of not an old person's industry. I don't want to say that, but I feel like we don't see many young people working in it, which I think is why I can make an impact and kind of bring a different kind of side to it.
Yes.
And I think linking to that is, I think today, and this is kind of going more life mindset, which I like talking about as well, is the idea of failure. And I think you said that we've got a lot of young people that are doing startups, really know what they want, really going for it. Yes. But I think also today we have the other side as well, where we have I think the ill of humans is the inability to truly believe in ourselves and to take risk and not see failure as failure, but as another step. And so what would be your kind of advice to people about how to look at failure and how to kind of reframe it and just, send the message It can be that simple. You know, you never know what's going to come from a simple LinkedIn message or
Yeah,
writing a newsletter like I did.
It's part
You
of
know?
the journey. I think failure is something that, someone had put it in our head that, okay, he failed. What does that mean? I mean, if the company didn't work, like, it didn't make the numbers, it means that there was something, not working on either, the strategy, the approach, the resources used. There has to be a bottleneck or an obstacle that actually didn't work. But we need to define what failure is. And to be honest, if any pipeline we look at, either a project pipeline or sales pipeline or whatever, you need 3 times, 5 times, to land to your numbers, right? So is that failure? No, right? You can discuss 4 or 5 ideas, and then one will fly, others you learn from. So I don't think there should be any fear of failure. I think it's part of the journey, and I think you'll enjoy it and look back to it. And I think this is where resilience come, and I think this is where persistence come. And again, I don't really want to use these words just to show, no, be practical. Like, as you said, if you take no for an answer, that's fine. You're still here, but you might take a yes.
Well, it might be a yes in 6 months' time,
But it is a yes, and I say that to Ahmed and Maad all the time. Ask the question, like, if you don't ask, you don't get. And again, it is, if you don't ask, you don't get. I've seen throughout my career is that there were things that I thought it's impossible that will happen, or a company will do it to me, or something, or someone will go, outside their way to do it, and it did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think impossible is a word we put on ourselves, Failure is a word we put on ourselves, and I think it's only impossible if you think it's impossible,
it's in the mindset again. Yeah. So what if they didn't reply? Fine, I'll try again, right? I'll try someone else. And the key point, and I took it also from a leadership, Rita and Lean In, is always she speaks about the who, because we stuck into the how, and then she always says advice is also always look for the who can support me, who can help me, who can do this, who can do that, how can I if something I'm not good at, who can help me edit my podcast, who can. So it's sometimes that who that is missing from the equation because we're stuck in the how.
I guess finding solutions, I guess that's
yes.
I think that and also, and from my perspective, that's the fun thing, yes. if everything was just like simple, it would be like it wouldn't. I always say it's the valuable things in life come with some kind of difficulty, and so no.
At some point I think I moved countries, moved places, as I said, in many cases you think that's the end, if you left the country or you left home, for example, you think that that's a trauma or whatever happens at that moment is actually thinking that it's the end. And just realize that sometimes and many times it's the beginning. So it's the beginning of a new opportunity, it's beginning of a new journey, it's beginning of a new surrounding, even people around you change, and that's the beauty, as you said. That's the beauty of it.
I always think whenever I get to wherever I get to, I'll probably look back on the journey and think that was the funnest part, so
of course.
And I also wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of speak more specifically. You've mentioned some projects from the Middle East, from the North African region. You mentioned Algeria, Morocco, the solar and the renewables that's going on there, and how that North African region can be a kind of new frontier for energy for Europe. I think that's particularly relevant, following the Ukraine war, and we all saw how important energy is to our world. I think that's the example I always use. Like, I always ask people, why do you think energy prices went up so much after the Ukraine war? Why? Because we couldn't buy such cheap gas from Russia, and so an alternative for Europe is this North African region. So kind of give us an insight into the opportunities there are in more depth in this region, not only in Libya, and how important is this going to be for the development of that region as well?
It's very, very, very important. Like, as I said, there's no brainer. The location is speaks by itself, right? So that's one. The closeness of trade, The languages spoken, in these countries is English, French, and Spanish in Morocco. And there are projects now with Spain and Morocco in terms of renewables energy exported. But there are opportunities. Unfortunately, there are also challenges within the countries, right, for this. And for the investments to be attracted to these countries, you need, there's a political stability, you need, infrastructure, you need investors, you need the know-how, you need the private sectors that's very strong in these countries that can actually, take the lead or be part of it or part of the solution for it to happen. And I think EU, as much as we think, it's a great idea, to have this figure as an EU. In many cases, the countries are also facing their own economical challenges in order to look at what will be the investment stream towards North Africa. But I think, a spotlight into these countries. As I said, Libya being one, there was still, there's a challenges and there are challenges on political stability in the country to attract investors. There are many actions taken to improve this and provide opportunities, provide agreements, risk assurance to companies to attract. But I think it's very important for investors to start to look at this region. In North Africa, there are challenges of immigration, there are challenges, economical challenges, and stability challenges also in countries, and other countries are doing very well. As I said, one of them is Morocco, also in Bimban and solar project park in Egypt. So the opportunity is showing itself. To be honest, it's a big question mark what needs to be done for it to happen. And going back to the vision is there, the strategy is there. We sit in panels, we speak about it, but then the execution is something else.
Yeah, and I think we need to kind of think a bit differently about the challenges that you mentioned. Of course, they're real, but you can't tell me that we don't have challenges in Europe as well, So I guess it's what I said before about finding solutions and kind of trying to understand each other from a global perspective, because we can't. Nothing's going to happen if we're not all on the same team,
Yeah, and we need to sit at the table, right? We need to sit at the table because, again, win-win. I do have both hats, right? I live in the UK, I'm British, and then, this is again my country. I understand, the energy trends in the country. But at the same time, looking at regions where are the massive opportunities that we can, as UK companies help in the know-how, having UK companies, implementing and managing and leading those projects. But again, it goes back to partnership, right? Yeah. We need to come closer to this region and not just be watching, right? So we need to sit at the table and say, okay, let's discuss what are the win-win. There are, communities and organizations that are actually pushing for that to happen. Personally, I do a lot of that too, is that to encourage, companies to have these conversations and understand the problem and, propose a solution for it, as you said, rather than just discussing the problem, which is, a risk appetite and a risk, management that needs to be factored in anyway, anywhere, right? So, we can't just, work and operate in countries where everything is glory and everything is set, right? There is a risk appetite for investors, but I think our role and what you're doing is great, and hopefully we also do have a role in that is actually to highlight these opportunities rather than speaking all the time about the problem.
Yeah, I'd say that the key is that, pragmatism, I think sometimes pragmatism isn't that popular in the world today we live in, but pragmatism in terms of how we talk about the energy mix and the different energy sources, the pragmatism about how we look at different regions. I'm from Latin America, so my dad's from Honduras, so I have a similar kind of connection with it. My interest in energy came originally from Latin America, and how we have everyone thinks Latin America is just full of people that kill each other and sell drugs, but it's
amazing resources.
Yeah, the resources is where Latin America can really push on, as a region. And I think having those pragmatic narratives generally and about everything really, I think is going to be super, super important.
Brilliant.
So before the end of each episode, I'm going to ask each guest to kind of pose a question to the audience about something they should go away and think about. So it can be about something to do with mindset that we've spoken about, something to do about business, something to do with how we look at energy or the world, something that you think is important that the people listening should reflect on. Do you have something in mind that you would think would be suitable to ask the audience?
Yeah, I might ask one question, which came as a surprise, but I think a question to the audience is that if they would ask one thing to the leadership in energy today, what would that be? If there's one thing that is an ask for the leadership of today leading the energy sector, what would that be?
And why would you ask that? Why would you ask that question?
Because I think the expectations are really high from leadership, and I think it's really important to understand the answer will actually dictate how are they thinking, how are the leadership being perceived. Are they doing great thing? Are they expecting them to work more on the future, on the now? What is it exactly that, we would like the leadership to do more of or maybe less of?
Yeah, I think it's a good question because it's because it's that kind of communication between the energy industry and the people that aren't from energy, which I think that's where the narrative's gone kind of awry. So I think I like that question. But yeah, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I really appreciate the conversation. I think it's been enlightening, and hopefully when the podcast has thousands and maybe even millions of followers, we can have you again.
I will for sure, Emilio. Maybe at that time we will interview you. So
I don't know how good I would be at being interviewed, but
no, you will. Yeah, I think I'll go with it's good that we change the narrative, we lead the change, and we own the future. I always say that the only way you predict the future is to create it. So I think you're really contributing on that, and changing the narrative, and hopefully we can lead the change and own the future. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And I like the way everything you said about the region you're from and how we look at energy, and also the mindset you have. I think is super important. Something I want to share. With the people that work in energy, we're not just evil, as I kind of said before. We actually think we're making an impact. So I think that's the message I want to send across. So.
Thank you so much for having me, Emilio. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.